what that says to me and what I'm feeling is that we want to be equal. We don't want to be the same.
No,
and I think
exactly.
that's where the fine line is. It's
Right.
like, I am not a man. I don't want to be a man. And I don't really, for me personally, I like being a feminine woman, and like I'm okay with a man opening a door for me.
I love
and
that.
I'm okay with a man, reaching for the bill and paying, right? Like I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I do think that we've sort of skewed our views on like where our roles are, who does what.
Right.
And I think it's confusing for men, to be perfectly honest.
I think it's confusing for women. Like, I'm very confused.
Welcome to the Womanhood Lectures, where each week we bring you topics and discussions on issues that matter to you, the modern day woman. We aim to inspire, hopefully bring up some healthy debate and discussions around all things to do with womanhood. I'm one of your hosts, Yasmin.
And I'm Lyra.
And we invite you to join us at the table, curl up with your favorite drink, and join the chat.
We would definitely like if you shared this and liked it. And you can see us on YouTube, Rumble, as well as Instagram. And if you have anything to say, feel free to comment. We'd love to connect with you.
Hit that like and subscribe button. And with that, let's dive in.
Yes. So today's topic, oh my goodness.
Today's topic, a big juicy one. Oh, I love it. Feminism, girl.
Isms.
Isms. It's our first ism.
It is.
Yeah. There's so much to unpack here. So I wanted to start by bringing us kind of back a little, and let's just talk a little bit about feminism in terms of where we started. What did we really want out of feminism, say 100 years ago? Maybe even more than 100 years ago.
200, maybe.
200?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when I think about women, say in the 1850s, for example, right? What did they really want? They were looking for things like equal rights, being able to own their own property.
Yes.
Not being owned as property.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like, going from being your family's property, you're the responsibility of your father or maybe the oldest brother. But they essentially owned you. And then you go from kind of being owned by that family into marriage where your husband owned you.
Right.
Right. So, I mean, that in and of itself is like, it just blows my mind that was actually a thing at some point in history.
Yes.
But there we were, property of whoever we were married to at the time, and essentially having no rights or very little rights.
Right.
Right? Lots of responsibilities, certainly, but not really any rights to go with that. So, fast forward to now, where a lot of those things we've actually kind of overcome and kind of come through, where, yeah, certainly we're looking for equal rights. Well, yeah, we have voting rights. We are fairly equal in terms of, having a say in society, in culture. We're able to own our own property now. And so you would think that as feminists, we'd be like, yay, we did it. We own our bodies. We have rights. We can make decisions for ourselves. And yet it feels like we just have gone so far on the extreme in terms of the pendulum swinging that
Right.
we just want more and more and more. What are we really looking for that we want more of? Mm-hmm. Right?
Do you think that might just be a Western perspective? Like here we are in the Western world kind of looking at feminism in more of a sociological construct, delving into it and being more obsessed with just thought processes and ideologies, as opposed to, say, other countries in the world where unfortunately women are not at that caliber yet, or at that level where there are equal rights and women are seen as person as opposed to property, right?
Yeah. So let's take where we're at right now. We live in the Western world, right?
Of course we do, yes.
So what are we looking for as feminists? Like, do you consider yourself a feminist?
Yes, I believe
Yeah?
that everybody that I say this and I don't know how it comes across, but the idea of feminism is really based on what you had discussed, which is, do you believe that women should have equal rights to men? So in a nutshell, yes, I believe that everybody should be a feminist. Whether you're a male or a female, everybody should just believe that we are or should share in rights, in our equal rights. Okay.
Fair enough.
Do I believe that it's been blown to the extreme where, we've kind of taken it past that and moved it into, we're going to have these roles in society and we want to just share equally, just have absolutely no differences with each other. I think that's surreal. That's something that is not going to happen. Right.
Totally agree.
And I say that because we are women. We are the child bearers. We are the ones that, take care of the family home. But then we also, unfortunately, in our society, you can't be that domestic engineer, that person who's at home taking care of your child, unless you're married and you have somebody who can look after you 100%. So the roles have shifted. I believe that the roles have shifted where two people have to work in order to raise a family, right? Financially, it's just too much for us to, take on. And then obviously there's a degradation of the family unit. So there's a lot of women who, unfortunately do it alone, right? Mm-hmm. So that being said, I think that feminism in itself started off as a very positive thing, and now it's kind of mutated into something that, is too extreme. It's pushed the envelope of what I guess is necessary, where we can still have an equal balance with men and what men want to achieve with their masculinity. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So what that says to me and what I'm feeling is that we want to be equal. We don't want to be the same.
No,
and I think that's where the fine line is
right.
Like, I am not a man. I don't want to be a man. And I don't really, for me personally, I like being a feminine woman, and like I'm okay with a man opening a door for me.
I love
and
that.
I'm okay with a man, reaching for the bill and paying, right? Like I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I do think that we've sort of skewed our views on like where our roles are, who does what.
Right.
And I think it's confusing for men, to be perfectly honest.
I think it's confusing for women. Like I'm very confused. Mm-hmm. Like I want you to open the door for me, but I want you to know that I could do it by myself, like, because I can, right? Yeah. Like, I want you to pay for that dinner for me, but I want you to know that I can do that for myself as well, right? So it's in a confusing situation that we find ourselves in, right? It's such a small little thing, but I think that when you look at that other side of the world, and when we're talking about those issues, when I say that to you, I want it to be one of, there are women who are suffering in other parts of the world, So
Absolutely.
Here I am complaining about who's going to pay for dinner when, there's some serious consequences of, the differences between males and females in other parts of the world. So I would like to fight for equal rights for other women across the world. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. But, we can only do that from where we are.
Absolutely.
Right. 100%. So it's not like
sharing that concept, right?
Yeah. It's not like I can go to another country and physically save every woman from some of the horrendous things that are happening all over the world. However, we do have a platform here.
Yes.
Right. As Western women, we have a platform to be able to look at how can we equalize a little bit more what's happening to other women around the world. And maybe we don't need to worry about, who's opening the door here.
Right.
Like maybe we don't need to nitpick so much about our roles here, because I think we sort of got to a point where we had it down pat. We were like, okay, we're voting, we're equal, we're both working, yada, yada. And then suddenly now it's like, I need you to know that I can do all of this by myself. Like I was that woman. Let's be real. I was certainly someone when I was younger who would be like a traditional feminist, and maybe a little bit pushing the envelope, where I was like, I can do it all by myself. I'm a lone wolf. I can go out and I can go out in the world. I can bring home the bacon. I can fry it up when I get home, and I can serve it on a silver platter.
Right.
So net, right? It's like this idea that women have here of like, I can do you, and I can do it even better. And I think that's kind of detrimental in a way. I think that it kind of takes away from allowing men to step up and allowing men to be our protectors, our providers, our leaders, doesn't mean that we can't do it. It doesn't mean that I feel like women can't lead or women can't also do those things. But let's also allow space and room for men to show up, right? If I'm a young woman and I'm constantly like fighting this whole idea of like, yeah, I want to just make sure that you know that I can do all of this. Really? Who cares?
Yeah.
What? Just let him open the door. Let him do the thing that he wants to do. Let him support you in ways, and you don't even have to say, well, just so you know, I can do it too.
Right.
Who cares? Right? Like that's how I feel about it now. Whereas when I was younger, I would have been that person who would have been like in my man's face saying, I can do it too. I can do it just as well as you.
I don't know why I'm still that person, but maybe, I don't know. I mean, I'm raising 2 daughters.
Yeah.
So that being said, like I want them to always feel their power and feel that they're in their power. But yes, I can see the conflict that you're discussing right now, which is one of, wouldn't it be amazing if the men in their lives were just playing that role? But what happens when they're not?
So do you mean when a man's not stepping up?
Yes. When a man's not stepping up, when a man's not allowing that, you know, the feminine side to come out and what does that really mean, Yasmin, to you? Like when somebody says, okay, feminine side, what does that mean to you?
So I look at it in terms of like energetics. So let's just forget about men and women and let's talk about like masculine energy and feminine energy and sort of like the things, the gifts of each. So like feminine energy, for example, is an energy of being able to receive, being able to allow things. Feminine energy is all about creativity. It's sort of non-linear, right? Because creation comes from inspiration and like momentary bursts, right? Masculine energy is sort of like the energy of logic, and it's the energy of structure.
Ooh, I like that.
It's the energy of organization. And that's why when I think about it, I think of masculine energy and feminine energy as like a cup of water. The feminine energy is the water, right? It's flowy. It takes the shape of whatever is going around it. It goes in and out. And the masculine energy is like the cup, where it's like you're the container. You're the one who is strong and supportive and sort of structuring things so that the feminine energy can take its shape and can take form. Ooh, otherwise, it's like a waterfall that's just like spilled water all over the place, right? Okay. There's nowhere for it to go. It'll just kind of go wherever. And so I think of it in terms of, you know, sort of male-female dynamics, very similar. Like men tend to be a little more logical, more on the side of organizing, and they're the doers, right? There's a lot of action-oriented energy with men. Whereas with women, we tend to be, because we're the nurturers, we tend to be, you know, the creators. We create life. So I mean,
which right? I think is like
it's
incredible. The hardest thing that you know someone can do. At the end of the day, I believe that makes us doers. You know.
Ooh.
I know.
But creation is different than doing. Okay. Like creation is all about something coming out of nothing, and doing is actually taking something and moving it. Okay. And actually doing something with it. Okay. So you need both. Okay. Right? Like you need to give birth to an idea, and then you need to execute it. Okay. So if you think about like the idea, the inspiration versus the execution, that's how I see like the differences between male and female energy. Okay. Right? And we know a lot of men who, when they are in their sort of strong, healthy masculine, they are those men who are protectors, providers, like for everyone around them, right? For their women, for their children, for their families.
Oh, I love that.
There are those are the men that are like dutiful, almost to a fault, where they're just like, I'm gonna be the head of this family. I'm gonna be the lead. I'm gonna be there for you guys, and I want you guys. And so like they tend to be, if they are with women who are sort of in their like healthy feminine energy, they don't mind being being there for their women, doing things out of service, right? It comes from a really healthy, beautiful, loving place. And their women, in turn, don't feel like they have to prove themselves because they can sit back and say, like, yeah, you can take out the garbage or whatever it is, right? Like you can support the family in the way that you know how to.
Great.
Right? And then you as a woman can actually allow them to do that because that helps them stay in their healthy masculine energy.
I have a random question for you.
Okay.
Oh. So you have daughters like me. What do you see, at least the evolution of feminism right now and how it plays in this modern society? What do you see for your daughters in their future with men today? Ooh, this is a tough one, eh?
I'm scared for them, girl.
What are you scared for?
Well,
like, what is it that
I
you're
have
scared
two.
of?
I have two girls and a son.
Okay.
Right, and so I'm trying to learn how to navigate teaching them all the same thing. Meaning, I'm trying to teach my girls how to be independent, how to be able to take care of themselves, but to also be open to and allowing other people to step in and support them.
Okay.
And for my son, I want him to learn some traditional values of like, and he does, you should open doors for people. You should actually learn how to be a little bit of chivalry. Like to me, chivalry's sexy. Like,
Yes.
come on, where are
is.
you? Like I totally welcome that. If a man compliments me, I'm like, thank you. That's it. Thank you. I don't need to go. I don't need to walk around and be like, why are you saying that to me? And like, what do you want from me? Like when I was younger, I'd be like, what does he want from me?
I have a thought
Dude.
that just came to my mind. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. So I'm going to tell a story.
Oh, tell me a story.
Not a story,
about
but
that.
something that happened. I went on a date. I was probably in my early 20s. And on this date, he just kept walking on the side of the curb. And every time I would cross a street or a corner with him, he would
Block you from
he would
traffic,
block me from
basically?
traffic. And
Okay.
but I was so taken aback by that. I disliked it. And I think I was very much in my, I can do it by myself. I don't need a man. I don't need somebody to be like that. But I was disturbed by that. Like, I went back and I was like, I don't know. It's kind of weird and possessive and like, but now being where I am, I absolutely respect that. I thought it was complete chivalry. But that's why I say, like, how do you look at your daughters and can you see how they would probably see differently if that chivalry came to them at their age right now? Mm-hmm. Would they be able to handle it? Like, I couldn't see it that way. I couldn't see it as chivalry. Yeah. I saw it as weird, right?
Yeah. Or you saw it as like, he's trying to control me in some way, right?
That's
There's this
dead
like
on
fine
what it
line
is.
of like,
there was a bit of like, I don't know.
What's he trying to do?
He's like this now. How's he like in certain other situations, right? But
right.
I didn't particularly think about it again. But that right now, to me, I think that's amazing. That's chivalry. If a young man was with my daughter and was doing the exact same thing, I'd be like, okay, I like it. He's protecting her.
I'd be like,
that's amazing, right?
Yeah. He's a bit of a keeper.
Yes.
So did you go on a second date with that guy?
I did not. No.
Oh my goodness.
I know, it's okay.
That is so
it is
funny.
what it is. But yes, that did happen.
Yeah. Yeah. But when it comes to my kids, honestly, kids really learn through modeling, right?
Yes.
So
they do.
It's not for me to tell them. It's for me to tell my husband, open a door for me in front of them.
Yes.
Give them something, show them what it looks like for a man to treat a woman in the way that we would want them to be treated. Mm-hmm. Right? And it's my job to model that like healthy, feminine, like I can accept that. And I can do it myself. And I have no qualms about it, and I don't have to prove anything. Which is a really hard thing to do because there's a lot of pressure on men. And I mean, I think it's part of the natural tendency for men who have been exposed to maybe other strong masculine men in their life.
What about if they haven't been exposed to that, right?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, I don't know. I haven't experienced that. Like, I don't know what that's like if I was, say, a single mother. I would probably rally men into my life. Uncles, people through my church, perhaps, people at work, like friends. And I'd be like, you go spend some time with him. I would encourage that. I would foster that. I'd be like, okay, I'm going to buy you guys like tickets to go do something like an activity and send them out to do that so that they could have an afternoon to just chill and talk
to experience.
And I have done that.
masculinity.
Like I've done that for my son and my husband, where I've bought them like basketball tickets and I'm like, you guys have a boys' night out and like just bond over something that you both enjoy, right? And just talk about the things that whatever comes up.
So I have a question for you because you asked me that question. Are you a feminist?
I'm a feminist. It's so weird. I would say I was a feminist.
Okay.
I think I still am to a very small degree, but I don't like where feminism has gone in this day and age. So I don't think I would identify with like a modern day, what I would consider kind of radical feminist.
Okay.
Yeah. Like I don't think I aspire to that. I actually feel like it's been a real detriment to women being able to be in touch with their actual femininity.
Okay.
Yeah. And I know that might be like a little bit of a controversial point, but yeah, I don't think that it's been helpful. This like extreme version of, you know, I'm going to do everything. I'm going to be just as good as a man. I'm going to even be better than a man. I don't even need a man. Like see how it leads to, I don't need you. That's not what that's not what I think like true femininity is about, because we need each other. Like
we need men.
Humans need that sort of like village, that culture. Like you talk about how women in your life give you that sense of tribe.
They do.
Right?
100%.
And we need that.
We need a tribe. We need people to rely on.
Yeah.
We need people to talk to. I find, like I said, because I am around women who are single moms, also who are married with children. And even if they don't share in the same storyline as I do with my relationship, they share in similar storylines with men, you know, so that I can share in my experience, I can give them advice. But what I think is very common is that women in general are experiencing a role reversal. Like there's a role that we're taking on as women to become more alpha, to become more masculine, because men are kind of shying back and I guess maybe not showing up where they need to. Does that make sense?
So
I believe there's a bit of that happening.
Do you think that feminism right now, as we see it in our culture, is emasculating men?
Yes. I believe it's emasculating men, and I believe that they're taking it almost to an extreme where we, you know, where they're making young girls and, you know, the music that we listen to, the storylines that we see, it's always about us kind of just being on our own and we're good to go and we don't need them. And that's just not true. Like, obviously, relationships are hard. Marriage is hard. It's not easy. It's getting harder with all this
mixed messages,
certain ideologies, ways of thinking about men, ways that women need to think about themselves. There's societal pressures to be something we're not, to, you know, to our physical features, to how we look, to how we dress, to how we act. Education has taken a back burner in a lot of respects, I think. And, you know, I'm a firm believer that if you're a woman, you should be able to be whatever you want to be, for sure, you know, hands down. I just think that men, you know, in that have kind of lost their confidence level and their faith in the systems and cannot show up being who they are. Yeah. Does that make sense?
I totally see that. And I worry about that for my son.
Yeah.
Because like if he came across a woman when he gets older and the girl's like telling him, I can do this, I can do that, you don't need to do this for me, what is he going to do? Like where does he fit in, right? I can see how confusing it would be for him. Like I have this perspective of like, imagine me as a, 14-year-old boy and I like a girl, and like when we were young, like it seemed like you had to do a lot of things in person, right? Like we didn't have social media. We didn't have like instantaneous, you can just like snap someone. Now it's so much more convoluted with the way that kids and people communicate that like rejection is so easy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so like for my son, I want him to have like some traditional values of like, I'm a guy and I want him to have leadership skills. I want him to have skills to be something. But if he's never given the opportunity in his relationships, then how can he ever practice and how can he ever show up? Right? And so with my girls, I mean, I have one that's sort of ultra feminine, strong views, certainly. And the other one who's like a little bit of a wild child. And she's just like badass, which is beautiful. And I have the same conversation with her. You have to allow people to support you.
Yes.
And that starts with your friendships. It starts with home, right? But it will eventually bleed into your relationships as well.
I believe that.
Yeah.
So I guess the final question would be, what do we do? What do we do? Like, what do we do to improve our situations here right now? Because we can't help, obviously, other women in other countries. We do have to address it, though. We have to talk about, women's rights in the rest of the world at one point and really sit down with it and say, you know what, there's first world problems and then there's, not first world problems, right?
That's true.
So here we are and we're sitting with this first world problem of defining roles and figuring out, the degradation of the family unit, the fact that we can't come together in our roles and we can't figure it out. Masculinity is on the decline in the sense of, how do we return to that? How do we get that back is the question.
I don't know if we really get anything back. I do think that we kind of evolve into new ways of being.
Okay.
But I think that it's really important for people to just understand that there are differences. Like the whole point of us being on this planet, being male, being female, like that polarity is actually what gives life to so many things, right? Like you can't say that we're just all the same. Same is like, what's the point? We're not androgynous.
Right. And we can't have an androgynous society.
No,
so
like we need
men and women
to like procreate and have children and like move the species along here. But I think for us in this time, we really need to look at the masculine and feminine kind of qualities that we each have. Right. So like me as a woman, like I said, I'm kind of exploring this whole idea of kind of moving back into like more traditional femininity where I allow, where I ask for help, where where I sort of like delineate things in the house, where I'm not always trying to jump in and like be everything to everyone and do everything for anyone.
I have to learn this.
You must, but come on, it's tiring.
It is very
so
tiring,
exhausting.
for sure. But being, in my role as a mom, a wife, and also just in my profession, it's just constantly on the go. And sometimes we tend to get into this state of mind where it's like, if you're not going to do it the way I want to do it, then I'm just going to do it myself. Like it's, so it's a power thing. It's a power struggle that I deal with. I know that there's a lot of women who deal with this power struggle in their hearts, especially in this day and age where, we do have to have careers and we do have to, work and we do have to get out there and do what we need to do for our families. So the power struggle is there. It's there on a regular basis. And the information you're giving me is something I take and I say, okay, I do have to
sit back sometimes.
Sit back with it.
So the
Chill
thing
out.
is, it's like little things. It's kind of like learn to ask for help. Learn to sit back and actually accept it, especially if it's offered.
Right.
Little things like that. And then don't be the first to jump. Like that's a really hard one.
As a woman, that's like,
don't be the first one to jump in. Now, you obviously like in your role as a realtor, that's where you get to be all of that.
Right.
Like if you can even just look at it in terms of like certain aspects of my life, any woman can do this. Certain aspects of my life, I can be driving everything. I can be sort of like more assertive. Right? I can kind of be like, yeah, I'm going to push this forward. If you have your own business, absolutely. I mean, of course you have to do that stuff, right?
Yeah, it's tough.
And
it's tough to like separate the roles for sure.
And there are little ways and things that you can do in order to allow others to help you, right? Like even in your business, do you really have to be social media manager, writing up all your documents, like all of it? You don't really have to be all of it. At some point, you can give some of that away.
For sure.
Right? It's the same in your house.
For sure.
It's the same in your house. You got to teach people how to wash dishes or put them into the dishwasher. And yes, it takes time and it takes repetition and it takes, consistency.
Yes.
And you have to be able to do that in a way that's inviting. I know sounds crazy, but it's like you want to be able to invite people to help you. You want to invite them to support you, right?
Yeah, I say to the next generation though, kind of as a closing statement. I mean, there is going to be that moment where you're probably going to want to settle down and, have a family maybe, or decide that, hey, I've got to get things going in that department. It's very difficult. I look at the dating world for some friends of mine and it's,
it's scary.
Swipe left. And
I know. It's so, it's
so scary.
Crazy.
It's very quick. I've heard horror stories and I've heard stories of, just there's no commitment. Commitment is huge. But I will say, feminism itself, we've got to move away from today's idea of modern feminism. Like we just have to kind of find a middle ground where we kind of meet with the men in our lives and the men that are out there and figure out a way to come together and share in the responsibilities of today's world, because
I agree.
It's getting a little wild out there.
And learn to appreciate your differences.
Of course.
Like there's nothing wrong with that.
There isn't.
Right? So I think part of that is just being able to allow people to show up how they're going to show up, and allow yourself to show up how you want to, and just see where you, like you said, can kind of meet halfway somewhere.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Seriously,
Yeah.
I got to tell my husband to do the dishes.
I'm lucky.
Just like,
Yeah.
we have a dishwasher.
I know. It's all good.
Anyways, that's for the next episode.
Yes.
But no, our next episode is going to be about
the 5 love languages.
Yes.
That should be a good one.
Yeah, which all the languages are mine. But anyways.
All of them are yours.
All
oh my
of them.
gosh.
I speak all of it. I speak all of it.
Beautiful. Until next time, thank you for joining us today.